Fleet Admiral Song Kyung-ho stood in the command center on Earth, watching displays that showed battles across the galaxy. For the first time in months, the red warning indicators were turning green. "Sir," his aide reported, "Captain Lee's force has just disabled their 15th hegemony ship. The enemy fleet is retreating. 4 ships against 100, and they're retreating." Song shook his head in amazement. "Sir, the hegemony commanders are demanding to speak with you directly. They say it's urgent." Song nodded. "Put them through." General Thoss appeared on the main screen, but he looked very different from the confident alien who had mocked humans months earlier. His blue scales were pale and his eyes showed fear. "Admiral Song, we need to discuss terms." "Terms? I thought we were contaminated weaklings who should flee to our home system. The situation has changed. We may have misunderstood human capabilities." Song smiled coldly. "Oh, you understood perfectly. You just thought our restraint was weakness instead of choice. We demand an immediate ceasefire. This violence must stop. General Thoss, you murdered 43 civilian ship captains. You executed refugees in front of their children. You tried to starve entire colonies. And now you want a ceasefire because you're losing?" Behind Thoss, Song could see other hegemony leaders arguing frantically. Their carefully planned operation was collapsing as human forces demonstrated abilities they had hidden for years. "We were following legal procedures." "You were committing war crimes," Song interrupted, "and now you're facing the consequences." Ambassador Na Hee-wan stepped up beside Song. She had been preparing for this moment since the crisis began. "General Thoss, the Human Republic is prepared to discuss terms. But not with you. You're a war criminal. We'll negotiate with someone who has clean hands if such a person exists in your government. You cannot dictate terms to us. We have allies, had allies, not corrected. I've been in contact with the other galactic species. They're not happy about being lied to for months. Turns out they don't appreciate being told humans were dangerous when you were the ones breaking every treaty." General Hwang Min-ho's voice came over the communications from his ground forces command ship. "Admiral, we've just completed the liberation of Nexus Prime Station. The hegemony occupation force surrendered without a fight. What about the station's population?" "All safe, sir. The hegemony troops actually seemed relieved to surrender. Apparently they were told humans would torture prisoners. So they were shocked when we offered them medical treatment and proper food." Song turned back to Thoss. "General, your own soldiers are surrendering because they can't understand why we're treating them better than you treated our civilians. This is impossible. You were weak. Your ships were inferior. Your military was bound by foolish rules." "Our military was bound by honor," Song replied. "There's a difference. And our ships were never inferior. We just built them for protection instead of conquest." Captain Dongwoo's image appeared on a secondary screen. His ship was now leading a formation of captured hegemony vessels. "Admiral, we've secured the new Sol sector, requesting instructions for prisoner transport." "Captain, how many ships did you capture?" 47 vessels, sir." "We also rescued all surviving civilians from the attack sites." Thoss stared at the display in disbelief. 47 ships? That's impossible. You only had 4 vessels." "We had 4 human vessels," Dongwoo corrected. "Once we stopped fighting by your rules, the odds became much more even." Colonel Han So-young appeared on another screen. "Admiral, reporting from the outer colonies, all hegemony blockades have been broken. Enemy forces are requesting safe passage to leave human space." "Granted, Colonel. Let them go. But document every ship and every crime. There will be tribunals." Song turned back to Thoss, whose confident demeanor had completely collapsed. "General, here are our terms. Unconditional surrender of all hegemony forces. Return of all stolen property. Reparations for damages, and war crimes trials for everyone involved in murdering civilians. We cannot accept." "Then don't," Song said simply. "Keep fighting. See how well it works out for you." The communication screen went dark as Thoss cut the transmission. Ambassador Na activated her diplomatic channels. Within hours, representatives from dozens of alien species were calling for emergency sessions. "Admiral," she reported, "the Galactic Council is demanding an immediate explanation. They want to know how humans became so militarily effective so quickly." "What did you tell them?" "The truth. We never became more effective. We just stopped limiting ourselves to make others comfortable." 3 days later, Song stood in the same command center, watching as hegemony ships across the galaxy transmitted surrender codes. The war that was supposed to destroy humanity had lasted less than a week. General Thos appeared on screen one final time, flanked by other hegemony leaders who looked completely defeated. We accept your terms, Thos said quietly. All of them, Song asked. Yes, complete surrender. War crimes trials, reparations, Thos paused. We have one question. Go ahead. How long were you capable of fighting like this? Song considered the question carefully. Since the day we first went to space, General. We just hoped we'd never need to. But you seem so weak, so bound by rules and limitations. We were bound by choice, not inability. We thought civilization meant restraining our capabilities for the common good. And now? Now we know the difference between civilization and naivety. Civilization requires that everyone follow the same rules. When some people refuse to do that, Song shrugged. Well, you've seen what happens. 6 months later, Song walked through the corridors of New Nexus Station, the rebuilt trade hub that now operated under human protection. Representatives from hundreds of species conducted business under rules that everyone actually followed. Captain Dongwu met him at the central observation deck. Through the massive windows, they could see the Soul's Pride docked alongside ships from dozens of worlds. Captain, how are the new security arrangements working? Very well, sir. We haven't had a single piracy incident since we took over station security. Trade is up 40%. Any problems with the other species? None, sir. They seem much more respectful of our rules now that they know we're willing to enforce them. Song nodded. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Human patience and restraint were gifts, not weaknesses, and like all gifts, they could be withdrawn. Captain, what happened to General Thos? He's serving a life sentence for war crimes, sir, along with most of his senior staff. Any regrets about how things turned out? Dongwu was quiet for a moment, watching the peaceful traffic around the station. No, sir. We gave them every chance to act with honor. They chose to mock our rules and murder our people. They earned what they got. Song looked out at the stars, where human ships now patrolled trade routes with the respect of every spacefaring species. Captain, what's the most important lesson from all this? Sir, I think it's that being strong enough to destroy your enemies and choosing not to is very different from being too weak to defend yourself. Song smiled. And now everyone knows the difference. The galaxy was at peace again, but it was a different kind of peace built on understanding rather than assumption. Everyone now knew that human kindness was a choice, not a limitation, and choices could always be changed. Soul's Pride screamed through space like an angry comet. Captain Dongwu stood on his bridge, watching the tactical display as his ship carved through the hegemony formation. Every safety protocol was offline. Every weapon system was pushed far beyond normal limits. Direct hit on their command ship, Lieutenant Jiho reported. Their shields are down to 20%. Target their weapons, Dongwu ordered. I want them helpless, not dead. Sergeant Yujin looked up from her station. Captain, why not just destroy them? They murdered Captain Kim in cold blood. Because we're not them, Yujin. We disable their ships and take prisoners. That's how humans fight. The difference was immediate. Where hegemony ships fired to kill, Soul's Pride fired to cripple. Within minutes, 3 enemy vessels were floating dead in space, their crews alive but powerless. Commander Voss's voice crackled over the communications. Human ship, you are in violation of galactic law. Cease fire immediately. Dongwu smiled coldly. Commander, you just murdered 3,000 refugees. You lost the right to talk about law. We were conducting legitimate safety operations. No, you were committing genocide. There's a difference. Tech specialist Jamin looked up from his station. Captain, I'm intercepting hegemony communications. They're calling for reinforcements. 40 more ships are heading our way. Good, Dongwu replied. Let them come. Yujin, how are our modifications holding up? All systems green, sir. The new power routing is working perfectly. We're operating at 140% normal capacity. What about the other human ships in the area? Squadron leader Lim Taeho's voice came over the radio. He was flying one of the new experimental fighters that had been secretly developed over the past months. Soul's Pride, this is Ghost Squadron. We're moving to assist. ETA 3 minutes, Dongwu frowned. Ghost Squadron? I don't have you on my roster. We've been running covert operations, sir. General Lee's special project. We're about to show the hegemony what human fighters can really do. 3 small ships dropped out of hyperspace near Soul's Pride. They were unlike any fighters Dongwu had seen before. Sleek, fast, and heavily armed. Impressive, he muttered. Sir, Jamin called out. The hegemony reinforcements are arriving. 42 ships, all heavy cruisers. On the main screen, the new hegemony fleet appeared. Their commander immediately began broadcasting on all frequencies. Human vessels, you are outnumbered 45-4. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Dongwu activated the General Communications Channel. Hegemony Fleet, this is Captain Lee Dongwu of the Human Marine Corps. You have committed war crimes against innocent civilians. Surrender now and you will be treated according to galactic law. Laughter came from the hegemony ships. You think 4 ships can defeat our entire fleet? No, Dongwu replied calmly. I think 4 human ships can defeat your entire fleet. There's a difference. The battle began with the hegemony ships firing massive volleys at the small human force, but Soul's Pride and the Ghost Squadron fighters moved like nothing the aliens had ever seen. Evasive maneuvers, Dongwu ordered. Show them what happens when humans stop fighting defensively. Soul's Pride rolled and twisted through space, avoiding weapons fire that should have destroyed it. The Ghost Squadron fighters moved even faster, darting between enemy ships like angry wasps. How are they moving like that? Came confused voices from the hegemony fleet. Yujin answered over the open channel. We stopped following your safety regulations. Turns out they were just ways to keep us slow. The human ships began their counterattack. Instead of the careful, measured responses the hegemony expected, they fought with brutal efficiency. Every shot was precisely aimed. Every maneuver was calculated for maximum psychological impact. Target their engines, Dongwu ordered. Leave them stranded but alive. Within an hour, 12 hegemony ships were floating helpless in space. The rest were pulling back, no longer confident in their overwhelming numbers. This is impossible, Commander Voss transmitted. How are you doing this? Chief Engineer Quan Byung-soo spoke up from Soul's Pride's engineering section. We're not doing anything special, Commander. We're just fighting the way we always could. You convinced us to hold back by calling it civilization, but you're supposed to be weak. Your ships are inferior to ours. Our ships are different, Dongwu corrected. We built them to protect people, not to conquer worlds. Turns out that makes them very good at destroying conquering fleets. The communication channel suddenly filled with panicked alien voices. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Everywhere the hegemony had attacked human settlements, the same thing was happening. Human ships that had been running and hiding for months were suddenly fighting back with devastating effectiveness. The careful, rule-following humans had become efficient killing machines overnight. Commander Park Yoonji's voice came over the radio from the marine assault ship Inchin's Hammer. All human ships, this is Park. We've just liberated the prison ships holding our captured civilians. The hegemony guards surrendered when they realized we weren't going to follow their rules about prisoner treatment. What do you mean? Dongwu asked. They expected us to torture information out of them, sir. When we just asked politely and offered medical treatment, they told us everything. Turns out they're not used to enemies who show mercy. Across the galaxy, similar reports flooded in. Human forces were winning battles they should have lost, not through superior firepower, but through tactics the enemy couldn't understand. Sir, Jamin reported, I'm monitoring hegemony command communications. They're in complete confusion. Their leaders are demanding explanations for how humans became so dangerous so quickly. What are they saying? One of their admirals just asked, how do we fight an enemy that's stronger than us but won't sink to our level? Dongwu almost felt sorry for them. The hegemony had spent so long fighting inferior opponents that they had forgotten what real military professionals looked like. Captain, Squadron Leader Lim called from his fighter. We've got more company. A hegemony battle fleet just dropped out of hyperspace. 100 ships. Dongwu looked at the tactical display. 100 ships versus 4. Under normal circumstances, it would be suicide to fight those odds. But circumstances weren't normal anymore. All ships, this is Soul's Pride. New plan. We're not running from this fight. We're going to show the galaxy what happens when humans stop being polite. Sir, Yujin asked, are you sure about this? Yujin, they've been calling us weak for months. They've murdered our civilians and stolen from our children. They wanted to see what humans are really like. Dongwu's voice grew cold. Let's show them. Soul's Pride and the Ghost Squadron turned toward the massive enemy fleet. 4 ships against 100. The hegemony was about to learn why humans had been so careful to restrain themselves. Their mercy had been the only thing keeping their enemies safe. Now the mercy was gone. General Lee Sunmi sat in her office at Marine headquarters reading reports that made her sick with rage. The latest intelligence from the battle zones painted a clear picture. The hegemony was no longer pretending to follow galactic law. Her aide, Lieutenant Kang Do-hyun, knocked on the door. "General, you asked to see the casualty reports?" "Come in, Do-hyun. What's the count now?" 43 civilian ship captains executed. Over 200 crew members arrested on false charges. 6 entire cargo convoys seized. Kang paused. "And General, they're broadcasting it all as propaganda." Sunmi looked up sharply. "Broadcasting what?" "The executions. The arrests. They're showing it to other alien species as proof that humans are dangerous criminals who resist lawful authority." "Show me." Kang activated the wall screen. A hegemony news broadcast began playing. The alien reporter spoke in cold, professional tones while showing footage of human captains being led away in chains. "Today, hegemony forces continue their vital work protecting the galaxy from human biological terrorism. Several human criminals were lawfully executed after refusing to comply with safety inspections." Sunmi turned off the screen. "They're making us look like monsters while they murder innocent people." "General, there's more. Captain Lee's ship is still surrounded at New Seoul. The hegemony commander is demanding he surrender his vessel for inspection." "What are his orders?" "Admiral No authorized defensive action, but Captain Lee is still trying to avoid firing first." Sunmi stood up and walked to her window overlooking the training grounds. Young Marines were practicing combat drills, preparing for a war that seemed increasingly inevitable. "Do-hyun, patch me through to Starbase Sejong. I need to speak with Admiral No." When the connection was established, Admiral No appeared on her screen. He looked exhausted. "Sunmi, what's your assessment of our ground forces?" "We're ready for anything, Admiral. But I have to ask, why are we still holding back? They're murdering our people while we worry about proper procedures. Because once we start shooting, we can't take it back. The hegemony has more ships than us. Numbers don't mean everything, Admiral. We've been training for decades while they've been getting soft from easy victories. Our people are motivated, angry, and ready to fight." Before No could respond, urgent alarms began sounding at both locations. "Admiral," came a voice from Sejong's operations center. "Emergency transmission from Seoul's Pride." Captain Dongwoo appeared on screen. His bridge showed signs of damage and his uniform was torn. "Admiral, the hegemony just opened fire on the refugee ship New Harmony. 3,000 civilians, including 800 children. They gave no warning." "Status of the refugees?" "The ship is breaking apart. We're trying to rescue survivors, but hegemony ships are firing on our rescue shuttles." Sunmi felt something snap inside her chest. They were shooting at rescue ships. Children were dying while humans followed rules that meant nothing to murderers. "Captain," she said, interrupting the chain of command, "what do you need to save those people?" "General, I need permission to fight back. My ship can take on these hegemony vessels, but not while I'm worried about following engagement protocols." Admiral No looked at Sunmi, then back at Dongwoo. "Captain, you are authorized to use any force necessary to protect civilian lives." "Understood." "Sir?" The screen went black as Seoul's Pride cut communications to focus on battle. Over the next hour, Sunmi and Admiral No watched the tactical displays as the situation deteriorated across human space. The hegemony had launched simultaneous attacks on 7 different locations. Human ships were scattered and outnumbered everywhere. "Admiral," the operations officer called out, "we're getting reports from all sectors. The hegemony isn't just stealing cargo anymore. They're destroying everything they can't take." "What do you mean?" "They're targeting hospitals, schools, even orbital farms. Anything that supports human colonies." Sunmi stared at the display showing the destruction. "They're trying to force us to evacuate all our settlements. They want to drive humanity back to Earth. It looks that way. If this continues, we'll lose every colony outside the core systems." "Admiral," came another urgent voice. "Priority message from Earth Command." Fleet Admiral Song Kyung-ho appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Sunmi could see military leaders arguing frantically. "Chang-ho, Sunmi, the situation has changed. The hegemony just issued an ultimatum to Earth itself." "What kind of ultimatum?" Sunmi asked. "Complete withdrawal from all territory beyond the Sol system. They're giving us 72 hours to evacuate every human settlement. If we refuse, they'll begin sterilization operations." "Sterilization?" Admiral No's voice was deadly quiet. "They claim human presence is contaminating the galaxy. They want us confined to our home system permanently." Sunmi felt her world spinning. "Sir, they can't be serious. That would mean abandoning millions of colonists." "They're serious. And Sunmi, They've made it clear what happens to anyone who stays behind. The implications hit her like a physical blow. The hegemony was planning genocide. They wanted to eliminate human presence from the galaxy entirely. "Sir," Admiral No said carefully, "what are our orders?" Admiral Song was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of terrible decision. "Gentlemen, lady, as of this moment, the rules of engagement are suspended. All ships are authorized to engage hegemony forces with maximum force. Priority 1 is protecting human lives. Priority 2 is making the enemy pay for every crime they've committed." Sunmi felt relief and terror at the same time. Finally, they could fight back. But it also meant acknowledging that diplomatic solutions had failed completely. "Admiral," she said, "my Marines are ready. Give us targets." "General, coordinate with Captain Lee. His ship is still surrounded, but our latest intelligence suggests he's been making modifications to his vessel." "What kind of modifications?" Technician Oh Se-jin spoke up from the engineering station. "General, we've been monitoring Soul's Pride's power signatures. Captain Lee's crew has been very busy. Their weapons and shields are operating at levels that shouldn't be possible." "Meaning what?" "Meaning they've stopped following safety regulations. They're pushing every system beyond recommended limits." Sunmi smiled grimly. "Good. It's about time we stopped handicapping ourselves." On the tactical display, Soul's Pride suddenly began moving. Instead of defensive positioning, the ship was accelerating directly toward the center of the hegemony formation. "What's he doing?" Admiral No asked. "He's done playing defense," Sunmi replied. "He's going to show them what happens when humans get angry." The communication system crackled as Captain Dongwoo's voice came through again. "All human ships. This is Soul's Pride. The enemy has murdered our civilians and threatened our families. They think our rules made us weak. They're about to learn the difference between restraint and inability." On the display, Soul's Pride opened fire with weapons that burned brighter than anyone expected. The first hegemony ship exploded before it could react. "Message to all hegemony forces," Dongwoo continued, his voice now broadcast on all frequencies. "You wanted to see what humans are like without rules. Pay attention." Sunmi watched as the single human ship tore through the enemy formation like it was made of paper. Every shot was perfect. Every maneuver was precisely calculated for maximum damage. "Admiral," she said quietly, "I think the galaxy is about to learn why humans try so hard to control themselves." The war had finally begun, and the hegemony was about to discover that human restraint had been the only thing protecting them. Admiral No Chang-ho stood in the command center of Starbase Sejong, humanity's largest military installation. The holographic display before him showed the entire human territory. Red warnings flashed across multiple sectors. "Report," he ordered. Captain Ryu Wan-ho of the research vessel Inchen's Light stepped forward. His ship had barely escaped the recent hegemony attack. "Admiral, our intelligence confirms the hegemony is planning coordinated strikes. They're moving battle fleets toward 3 key positions: the New Seoul trade hub, the Busan mining colonies, and the refugee camps near Earth's outer system." "How many ships?" "Over 60 warships. They're calling it Operation Cleansing." Admiral No felt cold dread. 60 ships could destroy every human settlement outside Earth's immediate defense zone. What's their official justification? They claim humans are spreading biological contamination through space. They say they need to quarantine all human worlds for galactic safety. Dr. Shin Airi, the head of military research, spoke up. "Admiral, that's completely false. We've run every biological test possible. There's no contamination. They're just making excuses." "I know, Doctor, but the Galactic Council believes them or pretends to." No turned to the communications officer. "Get me Captain Lee Dongwoo. His ship is closest to the New Seoul hub." Dongwoo's image appeared on the main screen. He was on the bridge of Soul's Pride, looking tired but determined. "Admiral, we're tracking multiple hegemony ships approaching our position. They'll be here in 6 hours. Captain, your orders are to protect civilian evacuation ships. Do not engage unless they fire first." "Understood, sir. But Admiral, what if they use civilians as shields? We've seen them do it before." No hesitated. It was a fair question. The hegemony had no honor when it came to protecting innocent people. "Use your best judgment, Captain. But remember, if we start a shooting war, we might not be able to finish it." After the transmission ended, No studied the tactical display. His forces were spread too thin. If the hegemony attacked all 3 targets simultaneously, human defenses would be overwhelmed. "Admiral, Dr. Shin said. I have those new defensive systems ready. Captain Lee's ship has already been upgraded. We could install them on more vessels. How effective are they? In tests, they increase shield strength by 40% and improve targeting accuracy by 25%. But Admiral, these are still defensive systems. They won't help us if we need to attack. No nodded grimly. Human military doctrine focused on defense and protection. They had powerful weapons, but they were designed to stop attacks, not launch them. An urgent alert flashed on the main screen. The operations officer's voice was tense. Admiral, we're receiving distress calls from the New Seoul area. Multiple civilian ships under attack. The main display switched to a live feed from the battle zone. Dongwoo's voice came through the speakers. This is Seoul's Pride. We're observing 20 hegemony ships attacking civilian transports. They're demanding surrender or they'll open fire on refugee ships. No watched in horror as the tactical display showed the situation. 15 human civilian ships were surrounded. Thousands of families were trapped with nowhere to run. Captain Lee, what's your status? We're holding position 2,000 kilometers away. The hegemony commander is demanding we withdraw, or they'll treat us as hostile. On the display, No could see the hegemony ships using the civilian vessels as a barrier. If Seoul's Pride attacked, stray shots might hit innocent people. Admiral, came another voice over the communications. It was Captain Baek-hyun Soo from one of the trapped civilian ships. They're boarding our vessels. They say they're conducting health inspections, but they're arresting people. They took my medical officer and 3 engineers. On what charges? They claim we're carrying biological weapons. It's not true, but they don't care. No felt helpless rage building in his chest. The hegemony was kidnapping human civilians, and there was nothing he could do without starting a war. Captain Lee, monitor the situation and document everything. Do not fire unless they fire on you directly. For the next 3 hours, No watched the slow destruction of the civilian convoy. The hegemony systematically searched each ship, stealing valuable cargo and arresting anyone who protested. When the medical transport refused to surrender their emergency supplies, the aliens simply took them by force. Then the situation got worse. Admiral, Captain Lee's voice was strained. They're executing prisoners. The hegemony commander just shot Captain Kim of the transport vessel Daegu Morning. He killed him for refusing to sign a confession that humans are biological terrorists. The command center fell silent. Everyone stared at the main screen in shock. They executed him? Dr. Shin whispered. In front of his crew and passengers, Dongwoo confirmed, including children. Admiral No's hands clenched into fists. Captain Kim had been a good man, a veteran who had served humanity for 20 years. Now he was dead because he wouldn't lie about his own people. Admiral, the operations officer called out, we're getting similar reports from the other attack zones. The hegemony is executing anyone who resists their demands. How many dead? 12 confirmed so far. All civilian ship captains who refused to cooperate. No stared at the tactical display. The hegemony wasn't just stealing cargo anymore. They were committing murder to terrorize human populations into submission, get me emergency, communication with Earth Command. Admiral Song Kyung-ho appeared on screen from Earth. His expression was grim. Chang-ho, I've been monitoring the situation. This is worse than we expected. Sir, they're executing civilians. We have to respond, I know, but if we attack, they'll claim we started the war. The Galactic Council will side with them. Sir, with respect, the war has already started. They're just killing us slowly while we follow rules they abandoned months ago. Admiral Song was quiet for a long moment. In the background, No could hear urgent voices discussing the crisis. Chang-ho, I'm authorizing enhanced defensive measures. Protect our people by any means necessary, but try to avoid being the first to fire. Understood, sir. After the transmission ended, No turned to his staff. Send new orders to all ships. Full defensive protocols are now active. If hegemony forces threaten civilian lives, our captains are authorized to respond with appropriate force. Sir, the communications officer said, Captain Lee is requesting permission to intervene. The hegemony is threatening to destroy a refugee ship with 3,000 people aboard. No looked at the tactical display one more time. Seoul's Pride was outnumbered 20-1. But those refugees included children, elderly people, and families who had already lost everything. Tell Captain Lee. Tell him to use his best judgment to protect innocent lives. It was as close to an attack order as No could give without actually saying it. On the main screen, they watched Seoul's Pride slowly move toward the surrounded civilian ships. Dongwu was about to face 20 enemy warships with just one patrol vessel. "Admiral," Dr. Shin said quietly, "should we send reinforcements? Our nearest ships are 4 hours away. By then it will be over one way or another." No settled into his command chair to watch the battle. He was about to find out what happened when humans finally stopped playing by rules that nobody else followed. The hegemony had spent months mocking human weakness and restraint. They thought human honor made them easy targets. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 3 days after the hegemony announcement, Seoul's Pride docked at Firebase Alpha. The small human military station orbited a dead moon at the edge of human space. Colonel Han So-young was waiting for them. Dongwu had served under Han before. She was tough, smart, and never backed down from a fight. Her short gray hair and scarred face told stories of many battles. "Captain Lee," Han said as they met in the briefing room, "sit down. We need to talk." Ji-ho and Yu-jin joined them. Tech specialist Yoon Jae-min was already there, working on a portable computer. He was young but brilliant with electronics. "The situation is worse than we thought," Han began. She activated a holographic display showing local space. Red marks indicated hegemony ships. There were dozens of them. "They're not just blocking trade routes," Han continued. "They're setting up permanent blockades. Our intelligence says they plan to starve our outer colonies into surrender." Yu-jin leaned forward. "That's illegal under galactic law." "They don't care about laws," Han replied. "They're calling it protective quarantine to prevent human contamination of civilized space." Jaemin looked up from his computer. "Colonel, I've been monitoring their communications. They're using military encryption for what they claim are police actions." "What else did you find?" "Their ships are armed with plasma cannons. Those weapons are banned by the Neutral Space Treaty. But they're using them anyway." Dongwu felt his anger growing. "What are our orders from command?" Han's expression darkened. "Maintain defensive positions. Protect human civilians. Do not engage unless directly attacked. Do not escalate. Do not escalate." Yu-jin's voice was sharp. "They're stealing our food and medicine. How is defending ourselves escalation?" "Because command is afraid of a full war," Han answered. "The hegemony has more ships than us. If this becomes total war, we might lose everything." The briefing room fell silent. Everyone understood the problem. Humans were outnumbered and surrounded, but watching innocent people suffer was becoming unbearable. "There's more," Han said. She pulled up another display showing casualty reports. "Yesterday, the cargo ship Daegu Express was attacked while carrying food to Harmony Colony. The crew escaped, but the colonists are now on emergency rations." "Any response from the Galactic Council?" Ji-ho asked. "They're calling it a commercial dispute. They say both sides should negotiate peacefully." Han's voice was bitter. "Meanwhile, children are going hungry." Jaemin raised his hand. "Colonel, I have an idea. What if we upgraded our defensive systems? Not weapons, just better shields and sensors." "What do you have in mind?" "The Soul's Pride has standard defensive arrays, but I could modify them to be much more effective. If we're attacked, we could defend ourselves better." Dongwu nodded. "Do it. Upgrade everything you can." Yu-jin smiled for the first time in days. "I could help. I know some tricks that might surprise the hegemony." Their meeting was interrupted by an emergency alert. The communication officer's voice echoed through the station. "All units, we have multiple distress signals. 3 human cargo ships under attack in Sector 5. Han looked at Dongwu. "Soul's Pride is the closest ship. Can you respond?" "We're already moving," Dongwu replied. 20 minutes later, Soul's Pride was racing through hyperspace. The crew worked frantically to prepare for whatever they might find. "Captain," Jaemin called out, "I'm reading the emergency broadcasts. The ships are medical transport Incheon's Light, cargo hauler Gwangju Star, and family transport New Busan." "Family transport?" Yu-jin asked. "There are civilians on that ship." 300 refugees from the mining colony at Kepler 7, Jaemin confirmed. "Families with children." Dongwu's jaw tightened. The hegemony was attacking ships full of children. When they dropped out of hyperspace, the scene was worse than expected. 6 hegemony ships surrounded the 3 human vessels. The medical transport Incheon's Light was already badly damaged. The family transport was trying to shield the cargo ship with its own hull. "This is Captain Lee of Soul's Pride," Dongwu announced on all frequencies. "Hegemony ships withdraw immediately. You are attacking civilian vessels in neutral space." The response came from the lead hegemony ship. This is Commander Voss. We are conducting lawful inspections. For contraband and safety violations, there are children on those ships. Then, their parents should have followed proper shipping procedures. On the screen, Dongwu watched as hegemony ships fired warning shots near the family transport. Parents were probably holding their children right now, terrified and helpless. "Sir," Jiho said quietly, "I have firing solutions on all 6 ships. We could disable their weapons before they react." Dongwu stared at the tactical display. His weapons officer was right. Seoul's Pride had better targeting systems than the hegemony expected. A surprise attack would work, but his orders were clear. No aggressive action. Negative. Hold position and record everything. For the next hour, they watched helplessly as hegemony ships systematically looted the cargo hauler. They took food, medicine, and manufacturing equipment. Anything valuable disappeared into their holds. Then Commander Voss made his final move. "The medical transport is carrying contaminated supplies," he announced. "For the safety of the galaxy, we must destroy them. Those are legitimate medical supplies." The captain of Incheon's Light protested. "Not according to our new safety standards." Dongwu watched in horror as hegemony ships targeted the medical transport's cargo bay. They were going to destroy medicine meant for sick children. "Captain," Yujin said urgently, "we have to do something." "Our orders?" "Forget the orders," she snapped. "They're about to destroy medicine while we sit here and watch." Dongwu closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his decision was made. "Hail the hegemony commander." Commander Voss appeared on screen, smiling coldly. "Yes, Captain? If you destroy those medical supplies, I will file formal war crimes charges against you personally. Feel free. The Galactic Council has already dismissed 12 previous human complaints." Voss cut the transmission. The hegemony ships opened fire on the medical transport's cargo hold. Thousands of doses of medicine vaporized in seconds. The explosion lit up space like a small star. On the family transport, children were crying. Dongwu could hear it over the communication channels. Parents tried to comfort them, but everyone knew they were helpless. "This is Captain Byakyun-soo of the family transport," came a tired voice. "Captain Lee, can you escort us to safety?" "Affirmative. Form up behind us." As the 3 damaged human ships limped toward the nearest human base, Dongwu made a decision. He activated the ship's internal communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. What we witnessed today was not law enforcement. It was piracy and terrorism. Document everything you saw. Remember every detail. Because someday we're going to make them pay for what they did to those children." The crew worked in grim silence for the rest of the journey. Everyone understood that something had changed. The rules they followed were meaningless when the enemy had no honor. "Sir," Jamin said as they approached the human base, "I intercepted some hegemony communications during the attack. They're planning something big. A major operation in 72 hours? What kind of operation? I couldn't decode everything, but I heard references to final solution and human problem." Dongwu stared out at the stars. The hegemony was done playing games. They were moving toward something much worse than theft and harassment. "Keep monitoring their channels," he ordered, "and finish those defensive upgrades. I have a feeling we're going to need them soon." Captain Lee Dongwu stared at the massive alien space station floating before his ship. Nexus Prime was huge, bigger than any human city. Hundreds of ships from different alien races docked at its ports every day. It was supposed to be neutral ground where everyone could trade safely, but today felt different. Dongwu sat in his captain's chair aboard the Seoul's Pride, a human patrol ship. His crew was small but skilled. Lieutenant Park Jiho stood at the tactical station checking their weapons. Sergeant Kim Yoo-jin worked at the engineering console making sure everything ran smoothly. "Captain, we're getting the broadcast from the station," Jiho said. "The Hegemony Council is making their big announcement." Dongwu nodded. The Hegemony was an alliance of 4 powerful alien races. They controlled most of the galaxy's trade routes. Humans were newcomers to space, and everyone knew it. The main screen lit up with the council chamber. 4 alien leaders sat at a curved table. General Thos of the Velkari race stood up. He was tall and covered in blue scales. His yellow eyes looked cold and mean. "Today we announce new protective regulations," Thos said. His voice was deep and threatening. "Human ships have been causing problems in our space. They are dangerous and unpredictable." Dongwu felt his jaw tighten. That was not true. Human ships followed every rule perfectly. From now on, human vessels must pay special tariffs, Thos continued. They can only use the outer shipping lanes. These measures will protect civilized species from human chaos. The other alien delegates laughed. The sound made Dongwu's stomach turn. A hegemony reporter asked, "What about human military ships?" Thos smiled, showing sharp teeth. Human warships? You mean those fragile toys? They could not fight a real battle if they tried. Humans are soft-skinned weaklings who hide behind fancy words about honor and rules. More laughter filled the chamber. A delegate from the Zarathi Empire spoke up. Perhaps humans should leave warfare to superior species. Their quaint rules of engagement are amusing but useless in real conflict. Dongwu's hands gripped his chair arms. Yujin looked up from her console, her face red with anger. Jiho's jaw was clenched tight. "Sir," Yujin said quietly, "permission to speak freely?" "Go ahead, Sergeant." "They're calling us weak. They're saying our rules make us pathetic." Dongwu understood her anger. Human military forces followed strict rules about protecting civilians and fighting with honor. Other species seemed to see this as weakness. The broadcast continued. Thos pulled up a holographic map of local space. Red zones marked the areas humans could no longer use freely. "Enforcement begins in 72 hours, Thos announced. "Human vessels have that long to comply or flee if they are wise." The alien delegates applauded. Some were still laughing. "Captain," Jiho said, "they're cutting off 3 major shipping lanes. Those routes supply our outer colonies with food and medicine." Dongwu studied the map. The hegemony was smart. They were not attacking humans directly. They were choking them slowly, making it look legal. Ambassador Choi Min-sik appeared on their communication screen. He was calling from his office on Nexus Prime. His face looked tired and worried. "Captain Lee, I suppose you saw the announcement," Choi said. "Yes, Ambassador. What's the real situation?" Choi looked around, then leaned closer to his camera. "It's bad. They've been planning this for months. The other neutral species are too scared to object. The hegemony is calling it a trade dispute, not military action. What are our orders? Maintain peace. Protect human interests. Follow all engagement protocols." Choi paused. "I know how that sounds, Captain. Command is trying to find a diplomatic solution." After Choi signed off, the bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what those orders meant. They had to watch while the hegemony slowly strangled human colonies. "Incoming message," the communications officer announced. It was a distress call from a human cargo ship. "This is Captain Baek Hyun-soo of the Busan Runner. We're under attack by unknown vessels. They claim to be conducting a safety inspection, but they're taking our cargo. We're carrying medical supplies for New Seoul Colony. Please assist." Dongwu stood up. "Set course for their position. Maximum speed." "Sir," Jiho said, "if we respond aggressively, it could start a war. And if we don't respond, people die." Dongwu sat back down. "We follow protocol. We investigate and document everything." Seoul's Pride raced through space toward the distress signal. When they arrived, they found the Busan Runner damaged but intact. 3 hegemony ships were nearby. They had stolen half the medical cargo. "Hegemony vessels, this is Captain Lee of the Seoul's Pride. You are in violation of neutral space protocols." General Thos himself answered the call. His image appeared on the main screen, smiling. "Captain Lee, how nice to meet a human warrior. We were conducting a lawful inspection. This cargo ship was carrying contraband. Medical supplies are not contraband. They are now. New safety regulations require all human medical supplies to be tested for contamination. We are protecting the galaxy from human carelessness." Dongwu wanted to fire on the hegemony ships. His weapons could damage them before they could react. But his orders were clear. "No aggressive action. We will file a formal complaint," Dongwu said. Thos laughed. "Please do. The council will give it all the attention it deserves." He cut the communication. The hegemony ships left, taking the stolen medicine with them. Dongwu could only watch. "Captain," Yujin said, "the colony needs those supplies. Children will die without them." "I know, Sergeant." Captain Beck appeared on screen from his damaged ship. "Captain Lee, thank you for coming. But I don't understand. Why didn't you stop them?" Dongwu felt sick. We have to follow proper procedures." "Procedures?" Beck's voice rose. "They just stole medicine from dying children, and you're worried about procedures?" After Beck signed off, the bridge was quiet again. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Their rules and honor meant nothing if they could not protect innocent people. "Sir?" Jiho said softly. How long do we keep following rules when the enemy has no rules at all? Dongwu stared at the stars outside. It was a good question. The hegemony was playing a different game. They used legal words to hide theft and cruelty. They mocked human honor while breaking every agreement they had signed. For now we follow orders, Dongwu said. But document everything. Every violation, every theft, every threat. Someone needs to keep track of what they're really doing. As Soul's Pride headed back to patrol, Dongwu wondered how long human patience would last. The galaxy thought human rules made them weak. Maybe it was time to show what humans could do when the rules no longer protected anyone.